address you on pressing matters in our provincial government in Mpumalanga. Without much waste of time, I'm going to then invite the Honorable Premier to then address you formally. So, Honorable Premier, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mtetwa. Once again, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to take this opportunity and announce that I have decided, after consultation with the ANC leadership in the province, to release MEC Msibi, responsible for Agriculture, Rural Development, Land and Environmental Affairs Department, from his position in the Provincial Executive Council with immediate effect. I am doing so in light of his much publicized detention yesterday on the 11th of October 2021. The decision to release MEC Msibi has been taken in consideration of the seriousness of the charges he is facing, as well as the impact that same will have on his work as the executive authority in government. After all, it is to be expected that he should dedicate a fair amount of time to the case he is facing. It is common cause that the governing ANC has set itself a particular moral standard that all of us as its public representative have to abide by. Whilst I release MEC Msibi from his role and responsibilities, I wish to emphasize and accordingly observe the two basic pillars of the jurisprudence: the right to be presumed innocent until proven otherwise, and the right to equality before the law. In the meantime, I have determined that MEC for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, MEC Busisiwe Shiba, will continue to act in the Department of Agriculture, Rural Development, Land and Environmental Affairs until it would have been filled substantively. Mandla Msibi is a comrade of mine, whom I have known and worked with for many years. I hold him in a very high regard, and I shall continue to do so until proven otherwise. In this regard, I can only hope that this unfortunate event will afford him an opportunity to reflect deeply. It remains for me to thank Comrade Mandla Msibi for his commitment during his tenure as MEC in the Mpumalanga provincial government. I thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Premier. And what would be a media briefing without questions? In case if there are some questions from the media fraternity, we'll just see by the show of your hand if you can. But it will also appreciate it if you can first tell us your name and which media house are you representing, so that we can recognize you accordingly. Over to you. Who's going to start first?
Okay, Lindo Hutekulu from the NCA Premier. Are you not being perhaps hasty? Because, as you said, this is a man who's facing charges and is still trying to prove his case in court. Are you not being hasty then in removing him from his position rather than a suspension? Because as it sounds, you are essentially firing him from his position.
Thank you very much, Lindo. Firing, though it's a very strong language, but let's see if there's any other hand from the media fraternity. Mr. Mtshweni Masibela, but you do the introduction. Over to you.
Mtshweni Masibela from Yezum Africa. You are talking about the language. You're saying the language is strong. That's why I just want to understand. Has he been just suspended for now from his position, or he has been fired?
I hope you're not playing semantics. Okay, let's just take one last round and then we can see if there's another round of hands. In the absence of any, I'll then afford the Honorable Premier just to respond to those two questions. Over to you, Honorable Premier.
Thanks for the two questions, Lindo and Mtshweni. I hope all of us, it is now common cause that the African National Congress during its conference, has taken a decision that says that any of its members, be it ordinary members, the leadership, and including the public representatives, if they were to be found in any wrongdoing in the form of them having to attend court cases, we are automatically and accordingly expected to step aside. And being a public representatives, what would then mean? But in particular, when you are a member of executive, you will then be released of your responsibility as the MEC or as the premier, and you go back to legislature. You're not even going to be a chairperson of any of the portfolio committees, because that is quite a senior position at the legislature. You become an ordinary member. Now, what will then happen with the MEC Msibi? Whilst he's still in attendance, he will remain a member of the provincial legislature, just an ordinary member, until he's been cleared of the charges that he is facing. And of course, subject to the developments as they will unfold in future. And if he is not found guilty of such charges, he still has an opportunity to come and serve once again at the behest of the premier. I can still call him back to come and serve in the executive. But in the meantime, all that it means, he will have to be afforded an opportunity to attend to the matters as they are presented before the court of law.
Okay, thank you very much. We can see if we can take another round set of questions, if there are any. Lindo, you want to take a second bite?
Yes. Lindo Mufetul from ENCA again. I do believe there is a sort of confusion in terms of the wording around it. And I'll make an example to say that in the MEC, we do know that the step aside had applied to the Secretary General. And we do know that at the moment, the person who's acting in his stead is a Deputy Secretary General. So there's a suspension, and she is acting but still as a Deputy Secretary General. So the question is, Ubabu Mandla Msibi, is he suspended or has he been fired from his duties? And are you saying that after he clears his name, will he be reinstated? Is that dependent on whether he clears his name or not? Will he automatically be reinstated, or are you saying he's just going to remain a member of the legislature? There's a confusion around the wording, because at the moment it does sound like he's fired, and you're saying that after he clears his name, then he can somehow rise to the ranks again in another process to unfold.
You know, Lindo Gushe, all that it means, remember, you serve as the member of the executive on the behest of you being appointed by the premier. And therefore, all that it means at this point in time, in line with the policies of the governing party, what we are saying, if you want to use the word fired, yes, at this point in time, he is recused from being the member of the executive, but he still remains a member of the Mpumalanga provincial legislature as an ordinary member. Whether he gets cleared or he's not cleared. Now, later on, let's cite for an example, if he happens to be cleared of his cases, and it happens that I reshuffle, I have that liberty to consider him as well, because he's no longer undergoing any case, and therefore he can still step in as the member of executive if I decide to appoint him back into, to invite him in back into my cabinet. So that's the whole situation. But at this point in time, this position, it's a position of responsibility, and therefore we've taken an oath which will then indicate what is it that is expected of us as the members of the executive. Now, in line with that, and also with the ANC policies at this point in time, considering the seriousness of the cases that he is facing, and therefore it is in the best interest of the organization and in the best interest of the people of Mpumalanga for us to release him, and also in his best interest to release him so that he be afforded an opportunity to go and attend to this matter. So, as I've indicated, that, you know, there's a presumption in the rule of law that you remain innocent until proven guilty. So at this point in time, he's not yet been found guilty, but what we know is that he has already been charged with the murder case and also the attempted murder case. So therefore, we want to afford him that opportunity to attend and clear his name, and he has the right to reply as well.
Sharon, I hope now you covered Bido. Another round as well. Okay, can you just deal? Let's just give Mr. Mwedi and then Mr. Mandla Koze, then follow. But do the introduction as well. We're done with the introduction. We can just go straight to the question.
Okay. Yeah. Premier, I just want to know, because some people were in court today. Some people are saying that this is not the first time the MEC has a cloud hanging over his head. Then why swift action now? Because there's been many cases that has been attending to in court. We understand that he has been acquitted on some, and I would assume that you've been aware of some of those cases. Why are you swift now? Why wait until this time? And then I know that you are speaking now in your capacity as the Premier, representing government, but you are also an ANC member. These are serious allegations, and you are going to the polls. Aren't you concerned about the image, maybe, of the ANC and also your government in terms of what has happened?
Okay, let's allow Mr. Mandla.
Yeah, Mandla from the Sowetan.
Mandla
from the Sowetan newspaper. Okay. It took you about 24 hours to come back. He handed himself at 7:30 in the morning in the police station, charged, which we wrote articles around. We don't know what time we were told, but why did it take you from 24 hours to act on, especially on a Schedule 5 offense, which is murder? And secondly, I think this one is aligned to what Mweli have asked. We'll remember that when you called for your cabinet in 2019, I believe he was not part of the people who were in the room when you were announcing executive council members. Part of it we heard underneath that he had to attend to the House for integrity committee or anything of that nature. Is that true? Did you appoint him with the other cases which he might have won recently? Did you appoint him having such charges before?
Yes, and let me start with the last question that Mandla has asked. I remember very well, he was not here, because when I called them in to inform them that I'm inviting the various members into the executive, he was not here, it is true. And the reason why he was not here is not because of he was attending the integrity committee. Remember, Comrade Mandla Msibi, he is running the elections. During that time, it was immediately just after we've concluded on elections, and immediately after that, we still have to wrap up and analyze how have we fared in terms of our performance as the African National Congress. So he went to Lutuli precisely because of he was attending that said meeting, and I was well aware, and he was aware that he was going to be appointed, and accordingly we went ahead. Now, coming back to the issue that it is not the first time that he might have had cases of this nature under his name. Remember, as the African National Congress, the state-by-state rule has been effected recently. Yes, a decision we took during the national conference, but then subsequent to that, there were processes, internal processes that had to be undertaken in terms of the interpretation and the modalities of the implementation thereof. And therefore, now we've got clear guidelines as the organization as to what does it mean, how do we go about in terms of implementing that. It has since been approved by the National Executive Committee and subsequently communicated to the Provincial Executive Committee and also the regional executive committees and the branches of the African National Congress. And therefore, all of us, we need to adhere to that decision and own up to it as we have collectively taken as the African National Congress. And we're doing so to redeem the integrity of the organization. As you are saying, what image would this have, or what impact rather would this have in the image of the organization and that of government? So in the spirit of the renewal of the organization, the issue of integrity, it's paramount, and therefore as part of us having to address such issues, we need to make sure that there are certain standards that us as members of the African National Congress, we have to adhere to at all times and observe the constitution of the African National Congress.
Still more questions? I thought we now run out. Okay, let's just do the last round now. I think we've covered enough ground. And of course, we'll afford Lindo.
Well, as you can see, the Mpumalanga Premier announcing that she is going to place, or rather fire, the MEC of Land and Agriculture, Mandla Msibi, saying that it is in a bid to regain the integrity of the ANC, underlining or underscoring rather the fact that he still is entitled to a fair hearing in court and that he's considered innocent until proven guilty, saying that it may have taken 24 hours to reach this position, but there needed to be consultation with the NEC of the ANC on the step-aside policy. So that decision coming through, and we know that the current COGTA MEC in Mpumalanga will continue acting in that position. Well, the failure to properly